Hey everyone, welcome back to another session of our CISSP study group. I'm B-Dubs, and I'm excited to dive into today's topics with you. Whether you're working hard to pass the CISSP exam or simply passionate about cybersecurity, you're in exactly the right place. Your dedication means a lot. It's fantastic to see you all here, and I'm happy to be on this journey with you. Last session, we finished up Domain 5, Objectives 5.5 and 5.6. If you missed it, don't worry. I've created a playlist for you to catch up at your own pace. I'll share the link in chat now. Today we're diving into Domain 6, Security Assessment and Testing. This domain focuses on ensuring security controls actually perform as designed. Think of it as cybersecurity's quality control process. While earlier domains taught us how to build security, Domain 6 shows us how to verify that it's truly effective. It provides the tools and frameworks we need to test and assess our security measures with confidence. We'll focus on two key objectives today. 6.1, Design and validate assessment, test, and audit strategies. And 6.2, Conduct security control testing. Let's get started. Let's dive into Objective 6.1, Creating effective security testing strategies. Think of this as architecting your security testing roadmap. A well-designed strategy isn't just about checking boxes. It's about protecting your organization's assets in a systematic and comprehensive way. Let's talk about the key components of a solid testing strategy. As security professionals, we need to be methodical in our approach. First, we need a crystal clear scope and objectives. What systems are we testing? What are our goals? Are we looking for specific vulnerabilities or conducting a broad compliance check? Next comes defining our testing methodologies. Will we perform vulnerability scans, penetration testing, code reviews? Each method serves a unique purpose, and choosing the right combination is important. We also need to identify our required resources and team roles. Who's conducting the tests? Do we need specialized tools or expertise? Having the right people and tools in place is so important for success. Now, timing is critical. We need a realistic timeline that accounts for both testing and remediation, including scheduling tests during maintenance windows to minimize business impact. Finally, we must establish our reporting requirements. What format will the reports take? Who needs to see them? How will we communicate findings to our stakeholders? Clear reporting makes sure our testing efforts translate into actionable improvements. Now let's think about a scenario. Imagine you're a security professional at a financial services company launching a new mobile banking app. Your testing strategy needs to be comprehensive and thorough. Here's what that might look like. First, define your scope. Test the mobile app itself, all backend APIs, and especially the user authentication systems. Because with banking apps, security is absolutely critical. Set a realistic timeline. In this case, a 6-week testing period before launch ensures thorough vetting. Choose appropriate testing methods. Employ vulnerability scanning for obvious issues, followed by penetration testing to simulate real attacks, and compliance checks to meet financial regulations. Establish clear reporting structures. Plan weekly status updates for stakeholders, resulting in a final security assessment report documenting all findings and remediation efforts. Security assessments are important here. They give us that big picture view of vulnerabilities and deliver actionable insights to stakeholders and management. As we move forward, we'll explore validation and verification, different types of audits, location considerations, testing effort calculations, and the essential role of security professionals. It's like building a comprehensive security inspection plan. So let's break down each component. First up is validation and verification. Validation answers the question, are we building the right thing? It's all about aligning with the business needs, like ensuring an application solves the right problem. For example, in cybersecurity, validation asks, does this authentication system actually meet our business needs for securing customer data? Verification, on the other hand, asks, are we building it right? It's checking the technical details. Does it work properly and securely? Like asking, is the authentication system correctly implementing MFA? Think of this like baking a cake. Validation makes sure you're making chocolate because that's what the customer requested, while verification is poking it with a toothpick to make sure it's properly baked through and not still gooey in the center. Both processes run throughout development, with verification focusing on completeness, correctness, and consistency. The intensity of these processes depends on the value of the system. Critical systems like financial applications or medical devices require rigorous testing, while internal wikis need much less scrutiny. Together, the validation and verification form the foundation of our security assessment strategy. Validation ensures we're meeting business and security objectives, while verification confirms we're implementing controls correctly, setting us up perfectly for the different types of audits we'll discuss next. Now, there's 3 types of audits, each with their own distinct purposes. Internal audits function as your team's self-assessment. They're cost-effective and leverage deep organizational knowledge. Though they may carry inherent bias, since they're being performed by internal auditors that are employed by the organization. These audits typically examine policy compliance, access controls, and security configurations, with most organizations conducting these quarterly or semi-annually to maintain strong security. External audits provide fresh, independent perspectives from an auditor outside the organization. These are ideal for compliance requirements like SOX. While they're more expensive, they deliver the unbiased validation that regulators and stakeholders require. These annual assessments cover regulatory compliance, control effectiveness, and comprehensive risk assessments. Third-party audits involve 3 key players, which is why they're called third-party. This is a customer, vendor, and an auditor. Think of Amazon demonstrating AWS security through SOC reports. These focus on specific requirements, like vendor security controls or cloud service provider assessments, with timing determined by contractual and compliance obligations. Your organization's specific needs should drive your audit strategy. A startup might rely on primarily internal audits to manage costs, while a bank requires frequent external audits for regulatory compliance. The most effective security programs strategically combine all 3 types to achieve comprehensive assurance. Now, location significantly impacts the security testing strategy. There's 3 main scenarios we might encounter. For on-premises environments, you have complete control and complete responsibility. This means comprehensive testing of everything, including physical security, like server room logs, environmental controls, and access logs. Network infrastructure, like segmentation, firewall configurations, and routing. And then system configurations, like server hardening and patch management. Cloud environments operate on the shared responsibility model. Depending on your specific cloud environment and model, you might manage S3 bucket permissions, encryption settings, and IAM configurations, which are important elements that remain your responsibility. Meanwhile, your cloud provider, whether that's AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, they handle the physical security and infrastructure maintenance. Now, here's what often trips people up. You must thoroughly understand your specific shared responsibility model, SLAs, and compliance obligations to know exactly where your responsibilities begin and where they end. Hybrid environments present unique challenges, combining both on-prem and cloud infrastructure. 3 critical aspects require our attention here. First, both environments need thorough security validation, no cutting corners. Second, pay special attention to any integration points between on-prem and cloud systems, as these connection points often conceal vulnerabilities. Third, ensure security controls work consistently across your entire infrastructure. Remember that your testing approach must also align with privacy requirements, such as data residency and sovereignty roles. Where your systems live determines not just what you test, but how you test it. So how much testing effort should we invest? Determining the right testing effort for each system is all about quantifying value and risk through 5 key factors. First is system value. specifically financial impact. How much could we lose if the system fails or gets compromised? Higher potential financial losses require more thorough testing. Second comes data sensitivity. Are we handling public information or highly confidential data like credit card numbers and health records? More sensitive data requires more rigorous testing. Third are compliance requirements. Some systems must meet specific regulatory standards, like HIPAA or PCI DSS, and they set minimum testing requirements that you have to follow. Fourth is user exposure. How many people interact with the system? A public-facing website needs more thorough testing than an internal tool used only by a few employees. Finally, there's integration complexity. More interconnected systems mean more potential points of failure that we need to test. Now let's look at an example of how we prioritize security testing. At the top of our priority list sits our payment processing system. It's absolutely critical, handling over $1 million in daily transactions, processing sensitive financial data, and requiring PCI DSS compliance. With direct customer impact, this system demands our most thorough testing protocols. In the middle of our priorities, we have our CRM system. While this is important, managing customer data and serving both internal and external users, it doesn't have the same financial exposure as our payment system. This calls for regular testing, but not quite as intensive as our high-priority systems. At the lower end, we have our internal wiki. This is still important, but it mainly contains non-sensitive information, it serves a limited user base, and it has minimal compliance requirements. Here we can apply a more basic testing approach, while still maintaining security. Remember that more value and risk equals more testing resources. It's all about smart allocation. Our resources are limited, and we can't just throw them at everything. We have to prioritize where we spend resources and invest our efforts. This risk-based approach helps you justify your testing budget and focus where it matters most. Security professionals play an important role that goes far beyond just running tests. We're the architects and guardians of the testing process. So what does this actually mean? First and foremost, we conduct thorough risk assessments. We carefully analyze which systems require testing and determine the optimal timing for this testing. This isn't just about following a checklist. It's about understanding our organization's critical assets and so we can protect them effectively. Another important responsibility is maintaining our testing playbooks. As the threat landscape evolves, our testing procedures must keep up. We regularly review and update these playbooks to address any new attacks and emerging vulnerabilities. One of our most important roles is being the translator between technical and business teams. We have to effectively communicate technical risks in business terms and business requirements into technical specifications. This ensures everyone understands both the what and the why of our security testing efforts. We also transform complex testing results into actionable recommendations. This means going beyond just identifying vulnerabilities to provide clear, practical steps for remediation that teams can implement effectively. As security professionals, we serve as the trusted advisors to the entire organization. We're the communicators to help leadership understand how security vulnerabilities can affect their bottom line. We need to clearly explain how these technical issues could impact revenue, damage the company's reputation, or erode customer trust. We're also compliance experts. A big part of our role is making sure all our testing activities stay in line with regulations like GDPR for data privacy and PCI DSS for payment security. This is about protecting our organization from penalties and maintaining customer confidence. Another key aspect of our role is collaboration. We work hand in hand with our development and operations teams. Instead of just pointing out problems, we roll up our sleeves and help find practical solutions that work with their constraints. Most importantly, we're culture builders. Through our daily interactions and leadership, we help create an environment where security is everyone's responsibility. From the CEO down to the newest hire, everyone needs to understand their role in maintaining our security posture. Through these efforts, we foster a shared responsibility approach that's important for maintaining a strong security posture. Now let's look at some examples of testing strategies that organizations implement. These examples will help illustrate how different types of testing apply in different scenarios. First, let's look at internal audits. Imagine you're working with a nonprofit organization. They conduct quarterly access control reviews to ensure their donor information remains protected. This is important for maintaining donor trust. Development teams run regular password policy compliance checks to prevent unauthorized access, while security teams conduct monthly vulnerability assessments to stay ahead of potential threats. Moving on to external audits, which are often driven by regulatory requirements. For example, public companies must engage third-party firms for annual SOX compliance audits. There's no flexibility here. Healthcare providers undergo HIPAA security assessments to protect patient data. Many organizations also pursue ISO 27001 certification with third-party auditors to demonstrate their commitment with security best practices. Now let's talk about testing in our hybrid environments, particularly in FedRAMP cloud deployments. These setups require an especially thorough approach, focusing on three main areas. First, we need robust API security testing between cloud and on-prem systems. These connection points where data travels between your environments must be absolutely secure. Second, we conduct detailed data flow analysis across the boundaries, mapping every route that your sensitive information takes between the systems. Third, we verify identity federation controls to ensure seamless access management across cloud and on-prem systems. There should not be any authentication gaps or inconsistencies. Here's the key takeaway. Your testing strategy must align with your specific risk profile and objectives. Remember these three important points. First, systems with higher risk require more frequent and thorough testing. No cutting corners. Next, compliance requirements set minimum testing intervals that must be met. And finally, be realistic about resource constraints while never compromising critical security needs. Remember, your testing strategy should align with your organization's risk assessment and available resources while meeting all compliance obligations. Now let's switch gears into exam objective 6.2, where theory meets practice. We'll examine how to verify that our security controls work as intended. Remember, there's three key types of security controls you need to know for the exam. First up are the technical controls, the security tools and technologies you interact with daily. Think of your firewall as a security guard for your network, checking everything that tries to come in or go out. There's also encryption, which scrambles sensitive data to keep it safe, and access management systems, checking IDs before granting entry. Next are the administrative controls, the rules of the road. These aren't physical barriers or technical solutions, but rather documented policies, procedures, and guidelines that tell everyone what they can and can't do. For example, a policy might require password changes every 90 days. Finally, there's physical controls. These are tangible security measures that you can actually see and touch. Imagine a security gate at your office, surveillance cameras monitoring sensitive areas, or biometric scanners reading fingerprints before granting access. These form your first line of defense against physical threats. Now you might be wondering, what's the ultimate goal of all of this testing? There's three key objectives that drive our security testing efforts. First, we need to verify that our security controls are performing exactly as designed, like a regular health checkup to ensure peak efficiency. Second, we're making sure we stay within the lines of our compliance with regulatory requirements, which varies by industry. Third, we identify and patch security vulnerabilities before malicious threat actors can exploit them. It's far better to find these gaps during testing than after a breach. Now let's take a look at the essential security testing tools for accomplishing these goals. We start with vulnerability assessments, which are comprehensive scans that identify potential weaknesses in our security defenses. Think of it as a thorough security inspection of your house, checking every window, door, and possible entry point. We also employ penetration testing, which takes things a step further. Instead of just identifying vulnerabilities, we attempt to exploit them, ethically, of course. This simulates what real-world attackers might try, providing valuable insights into our security posture. Additionally, we maintain vigilance through log reviews. By monitoring our system logs, we can spot unusual patterns or suspicious activities that might indicate security threats, like having security cameras recording everything happening in our systems. This is really just scratching the surface. We have an entire arsenal of advanced security testing techniques at our disposal. Throughout this session, we'll explore how these tools work together to create a robust security testing strategy. Think of us as cybersecurity detectives, methodically investigating each control to ensure our defenses remain solid. Now let's take a look at how software testing works in layers to ensure security at every stage of development. Think of it like building a house. We need to check everything from the individual bricks to the entire structure. Starting at the foundation, we have unit tests. These check individual pieces of code in isolation. For example, when we're building a password validator, we verify that it correctly enforces all security requirements. The minimum password length, special characters, and more. This is like testing each brick before using it in construction. Moving up, we have interface tests. These verify how different components connect and communicate. Imagine testing an API endpoint. We want to make sure it properly validates authentication tokens before allowing access. It's like making sure all of our doors and windows fit properly into their frames. Then comes integration tests, which check how multiple components work together as a system. A great example is testing how our user authentication system communicates with the database. We verify that when users log in, their credentials are properly checked against stored data. Think of this as ensuring all plumbing and electrical systems work together correctly. Finally, at the highest level, we have system tests. These examine the entire security workflow from end to end, from the moment a user logs in to when they're granted access to specific resources. This is like doing a final walkthrough of the house, making sure everything is working together as planned. Think about building a secure car. You start by testing individual components, like door locks, that's unit testing. Then you verify how locks connect to the car's security system. Well, that's interface testing. Then you make sure the entire security system works together. That's integration testing. And then finally, you test the complete vehicle security as a whole. That's system testing. Now, there's a few different testing approaches available to us. Each one gives a unique way to evaluate our systems. First, there's white box testing. Think of this like having X-ray vision into the system's internal workings. We have full access to the source code, which lets us examine authentication logic and security implementations in detail. Next is black box testing. This is where we put ourselves in an external attacker's shoes. Without any inside knowledge of the system, we test from the outside, trying different ways to break in, just like a real attacker would when attempting to bypass login systems. Finally, there's gray box testing, which combines the best of both approaches. We have some knowledge of the internal workings, but we still approach testing like an outsider would. This gives us a more balanced and comprehensive view of the system's security. Now, testing can be either automated, which is perfect for repeated security checks, or manual, which is better for complex scenarios. And it runs from the initial planning through eventual system retirement. Let's talk more about vulnerability assessments. These are important security checks that we need to perform regularly to find weaknesses in our systems. Think of them like getting an X-ray at the doctor's office. Just as an X-ray reveals potential health issues, these assessments show us whether our systems might be vulnerable. We use specialized tools like Nessus or OpenVOS to run quick but thorough scans against databases of known vulnerabilities, called a CVE database. So what exactly are we looking for during these assessments? First, we're looking for missing security patches. Think back again to your home security. If there's a known break-in method in your neighborhood, you wouldn't just leave your door unlocked, right? Similarly, unpatched systems are like open doors for attackers. Next, we look for misconfigured services or settings. This is a common issue in many organizations. Imagine having an expensive security system in your house, but forgetting to turn it on. That's exactly what a misconfigured security service is like. Another critical issue is default or weak credentials. This one's straightforward. Using passwords like password123 is basically inviting trouble, and default credentials are even easier to figure out. It's like using a paper lock on a bank vault. Finally, we search for known software vulnerabilities, which are security holes that have already been discovered and documented. The good news is that since they're known, they can be fixed, but only if we identify them first. Unlike penetration testing, which actively tries to exploit vulnerabilities, vulnerability assessments focus on identifying and cataloging potential weaknesses. A best practice here is to run these quarterly for critical systems, or even monthly for highly sensitive environments. These assessments kick off the broader vulnerability management process, which is all about finding, prioritizing, and mitigating risk in a continuous cycle. When you spot an unpatched server or misconfiguration, you can fix it fast before it becomes a security incident. Now, vulnerability management starts with knowing your assets and building an inventory. You can't protect what you don't know that you have. Automated discovery tools help maintain an accurate asset database with clear ownership and responsibilities assigned. Assets are then classified by value. Critical systems like payment processors take priority over test servers. Regular vulnerability scans identify weaknesses, which are prioritized using CVSS scores, business impact, and environmental factors. Based on assigned severity levels, issues are addressed through patches or configuration changes. The process includes tracking remediation progress, verifying fixes, and managing necessary exceptions, like tending a garden. It's a continuous cycle. New assets and threats emerge constantly, requiring regular stakeholder updates and ongoing maintenance to help keep the security ecosystem healthy. Now let's dive into vulnerability scanning, an important tool in our security arsenal. This systematic approach helps us identify potential weaknesses in our systems. We have two main types that complement each other. The first type is credentialed scanning. This is like having a VIP backstage pass at a concert. It gives us special access to see things that regular visitors can't. When we run these scans with authenticated access, we get to look deep inside our systems to find potential security issues. So what are we looking for? We examine system configurations and settings, like checking all the switches and dials in a control room to ensure everything is set up correctly for maximum security. Then we look at all the software running on the system. Just like keeping your phone's applications updated, we need to identify any outdated or vulnerable software that could put our systems at risk. We also check for missing security patches. Think of patches like vaccines for your computer. Without them, you're vulnerable to known threats. Finally, we hunt for internal misconfigurations, like having a strong lock on your front door, but leaving your windows unlocked. Small setup errors that could create larger problems. The next type is uncredentialed scanning. This is where we put ourselves in the shoes of an external attacker. We're seeing exactly what a potential threat actor would see from the outside. We're looking for a few different things here than before. We want to identify any exposed services, like walking around a building and noting every door and window visible from the street. Next, we look for publicly visible vulnerabilities. These are the weak spots that an attacker could potentially exploit. We also test for default credentials. You'd be surprised how many systems still use factory set usernames and passwords. It's like leaving the default PIN on a new debit card. Finally, we examine all network-facing components to assess our external security posture and determine how strong our perimeter defenses really are. Now, there's several key scanning techniques that we might use during vulnerability assessments. Each one can help us identify potential security vulnerabilities. First, there's banner grabbing. Just like a detective looking for clues, we examine the digital name tags known as banners that services display when we connect to them. These banners often reveal valuable information about what software versions are running on different ports, which is important for finding known vulnerabilities. Next, we have port scanning. We're mapping out which network ports are open and accepting connections, giving us a clear picture of potential entry points or attack vectors into the system. Then, there's OS fingerprinting. This technique helps us identify exactly which operating systems are running on different devices across the network. This information is important because different operating system versions have their own unique set of vulnerabilities that we need to be aware of. Finally, we perform network enumeration. This gives us the big picture. We're discovering and mapping out how everything in the network connects together. Think of it like creating a detailed map of all the roads and connections in a city. Understanding these connections is important for comprehensive security testing. When our scanning results come back, we can then categorize our findings using two industry standard frameworks that help us understand and prioritize the vulnerabilities. First, we have CVE. This is the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures Database. It's like a dictionary that gives each vulnerability a unique ID number, helping security professionals speak the same language when discussing specific security issues. The second framework is CVSS, which is the Common Vulnerability Scoring System. This rates how serious each vulnerability is on a scale from 0 to 10. Critical vulnerabilities score between 9.0 and 10.0. These are the most dangerous and need immediate attention because they could lead to serious breaches. High severity issues fall between 7.0 and 8.9. While these aren't quite as urgent as the critical ones, you'll still want to address them very soon. Medium severity vulnerabilities score between 4.0 and 6.9 and should be part of your planned fixes. Low severity issues score a 3.9 or below. These don't need immediate action, but you should keep monitoring them to make sure they don't become more serious. Now you should watch out for false positives, which are incorrectly identified vulnerabilities, and false negatives, which are missed vulnerabilities, by validating your findings and performing regular follow-up scans. Now, penetration testing is essentially ethical hacking where we thoroughly assess an organization's security. Think of this like hiring professional locksmiths to test your home security system. There's a few key components here you'll need to understand when it comes to pen test. Similar to vulnerability scanning, we have three main approaches here for our pen tests. White box testing is like giving a home inspector complete access to your house. They get blueprints, electrical diagrams, and everything. Here, our testers receive full access to any system documentation, source code, and network architecture, including diagrams, allowing for the most thorough testing possible. Gray box testing is like giving that inspector just the basic floor plan with a general layout. Pen testers receive partial knowledge of the internal systems, enough to be more efficient than blind testing, but not everything. Black box testing is the most realistic approach because it mirrors what an actual attacker would see and have access to. The tester gets no inside information. They must figure everything out from the outside, just like a real attacker would. It's like having someone assess your home security without any prior knowledge of the building. Now, there's a few steps to take when performing penetration testing. This is a really methodical process that happens in 4 key stages, and understanding each one is important for the exam. The first stage is reconnaissance, or recon. This is like being a detective. We're gathering every bit of information we can find about our target system. We'll look at publicly available information, network structures, and anything else that helps us understand what we're working with. Once we have that initial intelligence, we move into the scanning phase. This is where things get a bit more technical. We're actively searching for potential vulnerabilities in the system, while using specialized tools and techniques to identify any weak points that could potentially be exploited by malicious actors. The third stage is where it gets really interesting: exploitation. Now, I want to emphasize that this is always done ethically and carefully. You must have explicit written permission and understand exactly what you're doing before you accidentally take down prod. Here, we're testing those vulnerabilities that we found, but we're doing it in a controlled way that won't damage the systems. It's like testing the strength of a door without actually breaking it down. And finally, we reach what might be the most important stage: reporting. This is where we document everything we discovered and provide detailed recommendations for fixing those vulnerabilities. A good pen testing report needs to be 3 things: clear, actionable, and prioritized based on the risk specific to the organization. Your organization needs to know exactly what to fix and in what order. While thorough penetration testing takes time, it reveals critical vulnerabilities that automated scans might miss. Choose your testing type based on your goals: white box for detailed security reviews or black box for realistic attack simulation. Now there's a few different teams involved for security testing. There's 3 main teams that work together to create a comprehensive security program. The red team is our offensive security specialists who think like attackers. These ethical hackers actively try to find vulnerabilities in our systems, helping us understand where we might be vulnerable to real attacks. The blue team is our defenders. These security professionals protect and monitor our systems day to day, implementing security controls, monitoring for threats, and responding to potential incidents. The purple team is our bridge builders. They help the red and blue teams work together more effectively, ensuring that lessons learned from red team exercises are properly understood and implemented by the blue team, creating a stronger overall security posture. Now, the purple team isn't its own team, but it's a collection of both blue team and red team members working together to strengthen security. And when you mix blue and red, you get purple. Now let's talk about log monitoring and SIEM systems. Think of logs as your organization's security cameras. They're constantly recording what's happening across your infrastructure. Just like security cameras help detect break-ins, logs help us spot potential security threats. Modern SIEM systems like Splunk are like having a smart security system that can watch all these cameras at once and alert you when something suspicious happens. Let's talk about monitoring events. These are the key activities we need to watch in our systems to stay secure. These are our critical indicators that something might be wrong. Authentication events are our first watch point. For example, if we see multiple failed login attempts, this could signal someone attempting a brute force attack to crack passwords and gain unauthorized access. We also carefully monitor for any system changes and configuration modifications. This surveillance helps us detect if someone is making unauthorized alterations to our systems, whether it's an external attacker or an insider threat. Access to sensitive resources is another important area we track. Just like a bank monitors who enters their vault, we need to know exactly who's accessing our critical data and systems, and when they are accessing them. Lastly, we pay close attention to our security tool alerts. These are our digital alarm systems, warning us when something unusual or potentially dangerous is happening. Now I want to explain what really sets SIEM platforms apart. Imagine you're putting together a complicated puzzle. A SIEM does exactly that with all of your security logs. It takes pieces of information from different sources and creates a complete picture of what's happening in your environment. There's 3 game-changing benefits that this gives us. First, we get real-time threat detection. This means we can spot and respond to potential security incidents before they cause serious damage. It's like having a security guard who never sleeps. Second, when it comes to compliance, SIEM is your best friend. It automatically maintains detailed rules, making it much easier to prove you're meeting regulatory requirements. And third, if an incident does occur, a SIEM gives us powerful forensic capabilities. We're able to trace exactly what happened, when it happened, and how it happened, which is important for both investigation and prevention. Best practices include syncing all system times with the Network Time Protocol, or NTP, for accurate correlation and implementing proper log retention based on compliance requirements, which is typically 6 to 12 months. Remember to manage your logs strategically, generate meaningful events, collect comprehensively, analyze effectively, and don't just accumulate random data without any purpose. Now we also have to manage our log sizes effectively. There's 2 main approaches we need to understand here: circular logging and clipping levels. Circular logging works like a revolving door. When the log file gets full, it starts overwriting the oldest entries with new ones. While this helps manage storage space, it comes with a significant risk. You might lose important forensic evidence that would be critical during an incident investigation. Clipping levels offer a smarter way to manage log files by focusing on only the most important security events, like having a security camera that only records when something suspicious happens. Here's some examples of how we set up clipping levels. One common approach is to configure our systems to start logging after we see 5 failed password attempts within a 1-hour window. This would help us catch potential brute force attacks where someone might be trying to guess passwords. Another important scenario we monitor is when we see multiple failed login attempts coming from the same IP address. This is often a clear sign that someone might be attempting to break into the system, rather than just a user who forgot their password. And finally, we always keep an eye on users who repeatedly try to access restricted resources. If someone keeps trying to access files or systems that they're not authorized for, that's a red flag that they might be attempting to snoop around in areas that they shouldn't be. Now, effective log management can make or break your security monitoring capabilities. Here's some essential practices that you should have in place. First, implement regular log rotation, like changing the tapes in a security camera system. You should do this daily or weekly, depending on your data volume, to keep storage manageable while still maintaining recent history. Second, and this is important, always back up critical security events before rotating this log storage. You don't want to lose evidence of potential security incidents due to routine maintenance. Think of it as making copies of important security footage before reusing the tapes. Finally, monitor your storage capacity proactively. Regular monitoring and adjustments help prevent you from running out of space at critical moments when you can't afford to miss important security events. Remember that clipping levels beat circular logging for security monitoring. It preserves important events while reducing the extra noise. Just make sure your retention aligns with any compliance requirements that you must adhere to. Now, security testing relies on 2 monitoring approaches that complement each other: synthetic transactions and real user monitoring, or RUM. Synthetic transactions are pre-scripted simulated user paths that test specific functionality. They work like automated robots, running through login flows, checkout processes, and critical business transactions to verify that core features still operate correctly. Real user monitoring, or RUM, captures actual user behavior in real time. It tracks important metrics like page load times, navigation patterns, error rates, and performance across different locations, providing genuine insights into how users interact with our systems. Both of these methods work together. Synthetic testing establishes consistent baseline measurements for proactive issue detection, while RUM reveals any real-world user experience challenges. Together, they help maintain both security and performance. Now, when it comes to code review, there's some key code testing approaches that work together. Static Application Security Testing, or SAST, analyzes the source code without execution, catching vulnerabilities like SQL injection early in development. Dynamic Application Security Testing, or DAST, tests running applications to find runtime vulnerabilities by actively probing inputs and responses. Fuzzing is an interesting concept. It throws unexpected or random data at applications to find crashes and vulnerabilities. For example, sending extremely long strings or special characters to input fields to see what happens. 2 smart testing strategies are equivalence partitioning, which is grouping inputs into valid and invalid classes to test efficiently, and then boundary value analysis, which is testing at the edges of acceptable ranges, like minimum and maximum values. The key here is combining multiple approaches. You should use SAST early in development, DAST during testing, and regular fuzzing to catch edge cases. While 100% test coverage is ideal, remember that no single testing method catches everything. Now, there's a few more important testing approaches that help us build more secure systems. These are important for comprehensive security coverage. First is coverage analysis. When testing our security-critical systems, we aim for at least 80% coverage. But what exactly is coverage? There's 3 key types we need to understand. Statement coverage tells us if we're executing each line of code in our tests, like checking off items on a checklist. Branch coverage examines our decision points, those if-else statements in our code, and making sure we test both yes and no paths. Path coverage is the most comprehensive, examining all possible routes through our code. Imagine testing every path through a maze. Now for something fascinating, misuse case testing. Here, we flip our perspective and put ourselves in the shoes of an attacker. asking, how would I break this system? There's a few key attack vectors here we need to focus on. First, we look at input validation attacks, such as testing for classic attacks like SQL injection, where attackers slip malicious code through input fields or cross-site scripts that can hijack user sessions. Then we explore authentication bypasses, which includes all the ways someone might try to get around our login systems. We also investigate privilege escalation paths, which is how attackers might gain unauthorized access levels. Finally, we examine resource exhaustion attacks, which includes methods to overwhelm and crash our systems. Now, what makes misuse case testing special is its focus on secure failure. While normal testing confirms that things work correctly, misuse testing ensures that systems fail securely when they're attacked, like testing your home's locks by trying to pick them. Both techniques help to plug security holes by making sure there's thorough testing coverage and anticipating attack scenarios. Regression testing is absolutely crucial for maintaining your security posture whenever you make any system changes. This is like doing a full safety check after renovating your house. Every time we update or patch our systems, we need to systematically retest everything to make sure our existing security controls and functionality haven't been accidentally broken in the change. When we're looking at regression testing for security, several critical checkpoints need verification after any system changes. Let's break these down. The first checkpoint is your authentication mechanisms. Think of these as your digital front doors. Every time you make a change to your system, you must verify that your login systems are still working exactly as designed. This is your first line of defense. The next checkpoint is access control permissions. This is important. After any change, we need to double check that users can only access what they're authorized to see and nothing more. You'd be surprised how often a simple update can accidentally open unauthorized access paths. Then there's the data validation and input sanitization checkpoint. Here, we make sure all of our security checks on incoming data are still doing their job properly. One small change in code could potentially open up vulnerabilities if we're not careful. Finally, we take a look at security boundaries and isolation, checking that our security parameters haven't been compromised and that different system parts remain properly separated as intended. Think of it like making sure all the fences between different areas are still intact and at the right height. To manage this efficiently, automated regression testing tools can continuously verify security controls against an established baseline. This automation integrates with the change management processes, making sure security isn't compromised during any updates. Remember to document all regression test results with clear reports, as these become vital artifacts for security audits and change management records. Now let's talk about compliance checks. These are systematic reviews that make sure our security controls are functioning as they were intended. Think of it like a health checkup, but for your security system. There's three main types of compliance checks that we deal with in security. First is configuration compliance, where we verify that all system settings match our security baselines, like making sure all the locks in your house are set correctly. Next is policy compliance, which verifies that everyone follows our internal rules and procedures. Then there's regulatory compliance, which is absolutely important. This makes sure we meet external standards like GDPR or NIST. It's not optional and keeps us legally protected. Here's our compliance check process. We follow a structured approach. Everything starts with a thorough documentation review. We carefully examine our policies and procedures. This is our roadmap guiding the entire assessment process. Next, we roll up our sleeves and get into the technical validation, testing our controls to verify that they're working exactly as our documentation specifies. Throughout this process, we meticulously gather evidence. If you didn't document it, it didn't happen. This evidence and documentation proves our compliance status. Finally, we conduct a comprehensive gap analysis to identify areas where we're falling short, and more importantly, this part helps us develop specific plans to address these gaps. Regular compliance checks provide documented proof that our security controls are both effective and legally compliant. Regular security testing isn't optional. It's essential for survival in today's threat landscape. New vulnerabilities emerge daily, including zero-day exploits that bypass traditional defenses. Take the Equifax breach in 2017. A single missed patch resulted in 147 million exposed records. Just like skipping car maintenance inevitably leads to breakdowns, neglecting security testing leads to breaches. Smart testing strategies establish testing frequencies based on system criticality. Critical systems need weekly scans, while standard systems can be tested monthly. The best approach combines automated tools for consistent coverage with manual testing for deeper insights. Remember, testing isn't a standalone activity. It's an integral part of your broader security assessment strategy, feeding directly into your vulnerability management and risk assessment processes. Stay proactive, stay vigilant, and stay secure. Alright, we've covered a lot of ground today with assessment strategies and security control testing. Let's recap the key concepts we've covered today. First up is validation versus verification. Think of validation as ensuring you're building the right product for your needs, while verification confirms you're building that product correctly. Both are essential for security testing. Audit types come next. Internal, external, and third-party audits each serve a unique purpose based on your compliance requirements and organizational needs. Tailored testing strategies are important. Your approach must adapt whether you're working with on-prem systems, cloud infrastructure, or a hybrid environment. The key is matching your test to both the environment and its risk level. Testing methods include vulnerability scans, penetration testing, which could both be either white box, gray box, or black box, and code reviews. Each method has its specific purpose in uncovering and addressing risk. Log management and SIEM systems act as our eyes and ears. They're essential tools for effective monitoring and early detection of security incidents. Regular testing isn't optional. Ongoing efforts like regression testing and compliance checks maintain your security posture over time. And finally, the role of security pros. That's you. Your expertise guides testing efforts, identifies risk, and ensures proper security assurance throughout the entire process. These concepts form your foundation for both acing the CISSP exam and excelling in real-world cybersecurity. Take time to practice applying these principles in your daily work. Now that wraps up objectives 6.1 and 6.2. You're doing amazing on the CISSP journey. Keep up that momentum. These recordings stay on YouTube, and I'll add chapters after the stream so you can jump to specific topics. These concepts aren't just for the exam. They're invaluable for your security career, so connect them to real-world scenarios. Stay curious, keep practicing, you've got this. Now who's ready for the after party? I'm heading right now to our Study GRC Discord CISSP voice channel. It's perfect for deeper discussions, questions, and connecting with the community. If you haven't joined yet, you can visit cissp.britwhite.io for the Discord link. And don't forget to grab the CISSP role when you join to get access to all of our study channels. Our next session is going to be Tuesday, May 13th at 6 p.m. Central Time, where we'll finish up Domain 6, Security Assessment and Testing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in Discord.